Heita, Bulelani Balabala here. Welcome to the Small Business Podcast. We bring you weekly information, practical skills, and mentorship from industry professionals. This podcast is powered by T, an initiative that has directly impacted over 50,000 plus small businesses nationwide. This podcast is for small business owners who want to start, run, and grow their business. Follow us on all our social media platforms, #JoinUs4T. Every Wednesday is a new podcast. What's up, guys? Afternoon, good day. Abshin, good afternoon. Goeienaand. My Afrikaans is terrible. I don't think that's how you say it. It's goeienaand, not goeienaand. But in any case, thank you so much for joining us for episode 24, man. I think if this was a TV show, this would be almost 2 episodes away from a full season, you know. But, thank you so much for joining the Small Business Podcast. You know, we're very excited to be out here every single week, man, just bringing on industry practitioners and leaders in both government and corporate and various sectors to just come in and share, I think most importantly, their entrepreneurial journeys, how they did it. And I think the biggest thing, takeaway over and above everything is for you to not just analyze where they are, but most importantly is to unpack their process in terms of how they got to where they are. So you guys that have been joining us on YouTube, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you. The guys that are listening to this podcast on Spotify, on Apple or any other sort of any other platform. Thank you so much, man, for joining us. I mean, we've had over, 2,000 people participate and listen to this, and we distribute these podcasts to over 55,000 entrepreneurs per week. So to almost have that consistent number is a beautiful thing for us as a growing podcast. Thank you. So this week, episode 24, we've got an amazing gentleman in studio. And I think just purely by way of introduction, Nnusi, pronounce it properly, right?
Yep.
Beautiful. Nnusi Gazi. Nnusi Gazi is a young man from Rustenburg and currently the head of communications for Netball South Africa and the managing director of Kgotla PR and communications consultancy and talent management business. Nnusi is the former radio presenter for MixFM and hosted the Sports Roundup show and also the Weekend Wake Up Breakfast show for 3 years before leaving the station to pursue other opportunities. And just this excerpt, right? Nnusi is also the founding member and chairman of an NGO called the Nnusi Gazi Foundation, which primarily focuses on child-headed households and orphanage homes within the Gauteng and North West provinces, respectively. Sir, how are you?
My good sir, thank you. I think I need a clap there after that nice introduction. I'm very well, thanks. And how are you doing?
No, man, you're not. My English, what's happening to my English today, right? And we shouldn't even edit this, just leave it on there, right? Because these are the realities. And I think that's one of the things, I think just as an overhanging blurb for you, is it's one of the things that we wanted to do with the podcast, just keep it as natural as possible.
Yeah.
And keep it as real as possible. So if your phone rings, answer, you know? Because I think for us, what we'd want to emulate is not just a made-up image, but what actual real life is for someone as busy as you and how you sort of navigate. So I think just a rewind, how are you?
I'm great. I think I'm well. I'm a bit sleep deprived, but it's the nature of the business, the nature of the beast rather. So I'm good. I think I've got no complaints, none whatsoever. And thanks for having me here as well. I think I feel very honored in having looked at the people that have been here before me. I think sitting here is nothing but a privilege and an honor for me to have joined you today.
Yeah. So, I mean, so I'll sort of just jump all the way in. So, I mean, you studied computer sciences.
Yeah.
Then much later on moved. What was the sort of thinking? Maybe just take us to where you from, right? I think we understand Rustenburg, but, what was the upbringing sort of like? And what sort of motivated you in terms of taking some of the career choices that you've taken?
Look, I mean, as a lighty growing up in Rustenburg, in terms of what you're exposed to is very minimal because everybody that I knew was either a lawyer, a nurse, a policeman, worked somewhere in the mines. I mean, my dad was a prison warder, so that just tells you just how restrictive career options were for you, because I think for me, you are as good as what you're exposed to. And what my mom, God rest her soul, wanted me to become was to become a doctor. And I think to a degree I followed that that path of saying maybe I should become a lawyer, because I did not see myself wearing a white coat and doing with knives and whatever stethoscopes and busy opening people up and stitching them back together. I didn't see myself doing that, but I could imagine myself sitting in a courtroom and really arguing and trying to to get my point across. And I think this then became evident in my latter part of my schooling, where I then started joining the debating society, because I could imagine myself in a courtroom. I could imagine myself sitting there and really doing the things that I did. But closer to to the end of my schooling career, then I realized that maybe just law isn't just for me, right? So I then as much as I wanted to do it and doing it just to please my mom, I realized that I couldn't do it. And the next best thing that I was exposed to was computers, and I felt like maybe there's the path that I need to follow, and I then went and studied computer sciences. And again I did not go with the flow. I literally completely went off the grid, because all of my friends, went into chemical engineering, mining engineering, electrical engineering, civil engineering, and I decided I'm doing a different kind of thing. Then I went completely off the grid. So that's how it happened, and this was unheard of. I think I did not know anybody, within my community who was a computer science graduate or who studied computer sciences. I did not know anybody in my community who was a programmer, for that matter. I knew of Ntate Mamang, who was a civil engineer, guy. I knew of a guy that that lived up the road, who was a chemical engineer by profession, but doing other things. I could read about all these other things, but I could not relate to anybody who was, a programmer or somebody who studied IT. And even back then, IT was something that was fairly new, amongst us as black communities. So it was a very uncharted territories, if I can call it that, because we knew very little about it, and it was a challenge that I decided this one I'm going to take on. And lo and behold, I did it.
Why is consistently learning important?
Because education is the one thing that no one can take away from you, right? And for me, I always feel like life is an everyday learning institution. Yeah. So where you learn something new every single day. So for me, whether you've gone into an institution of higher learning or whether you're living through life on a daily basis, there's something new that you're learning on a daily basis. So for me, learning has been a thing. It was very important that I continue to emancipate myself and learn as much as I can, and really, because the more you learn, the more you realize that I don't know as much as I thought I did, and the more you start to understand more things about yourself, the more you start to understand that the world is not as black and white as you think it is. If anything, the world is grayer than black or white. And I think for me, so learning has been that most important thing, where I felt like I needed to learn as much as I can, empower myself as much as I can, because that is the only thing that I'll be able to fall back on.
And I mean, in your sort of growth at an infancy stage, did you ever see yourself as an entrepreneur? Looking at how we grew up, I mean, we grew up in an environment where you knew of one person who owned a tuck shop or a supermarket. You knew of one guy that owned a filling station. You knew of one guy that owned a butcher. But that was about it, and you knew of a guy that owned, 3-4 taxis, down the street. But entrepreneurship was not a thing that one was encouraged amongst black communities. I mean, I remember at the age of 17, I wanted to open a coffee shop, right? This is now in Rustenburg.
I was still in Rustenburg.
Oh, okay. So
at 17, I before Seattle and exclusive books could do what they wanted to do, I had an idea of starting a coffee shop that had an internet cafe attached to it, right? And I remember how I put together a business case, and I went and looked for a source for funding. And there was a guy who was prepared to fund me, but I was a minor. I could not get into any contract with anybody else. And this guy says to me, and I remember what happened was that I then put together a proposal, and I went to him and said, "This is my business case. This is what I want to do. This is how much this is going to cost you, and this is how I think I'll be able to make money at the end of it all." He then says, I love this model. I'm prepared to give you funding, but I need to see your parents, right? So then went home and said to my parents, "This is what I want to do." And my dad looked at me at the time like I had lost my mind. He says to me, "What the hell is this?" Right? So you are going to school. Forget this thing of starting business. Who do you know who's got a business? Who do you know who's successful?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the dream, died in a slow but painful death. But I did not know that this is what I wanted to do. So for me, it was about, okay, because I can't start a business, because I can't start an internet cafe, let me go back to school, right? So and I went and studied. But the older I got, the more then I realized that I don't want to work for other people. I think this then became evident in how I started growing, and I would always look for, and I would always see opportunities, not necessarily without even looking for them. I'd always see opportunities that I could pursue, outside of the conventional box that all of us lived in. And over time, the older I got, the more this is what I want to do. I think this is what I need to be doing, and I would get frustrated in corporate. I mean, I would not stay in a company more than 4 years, because after 3 years, I feel like I've reached the class ceiling, even though I had not. But I would feel very confined, and I'd feel very restricted in a lot of things, and I would get very frustrated, to a point where I would either get fired, or I would walk out myself, and as that happened, the more I realized I need to be studying my own thing. I need to start doing my own thing, and I started a few businesses before I got to where I am today, and most of them failed. And I remember the other business that I started. It was a cleaning service business. It was doing very well, I think, and I remember at some point I was breaking even. I was happy that I was breaking even, because then I did not owe anybody anything, right? But because of lack of knowledge, and because of inexperience, and because of childish behaviors, and then I ran the business down the drain. But a lot of lessons came out of that, because it's out of those lessons that I then got to go start my second business, which also did not do very well, for many reasons. And
what business was that?
So the first business that I started was a cleaning service business. The second business that I started, it was almost like a business consultancy services, right? Where a lot of people would come to me and say, I want to start a business. I've got this idea. What do you think, right? And I realized that I could actually make money out of this thing, because people come here for counsel. So instead of me just sitting here and giving them stuff to do and they go make money, let me then start charging them for all of these things. Then again, I was still young and naive and gullible and inexperienced, and it became a thing that I was just doing. And then I would decide how much I'm charging you as we're sitting around. Like there was no structure attached to it, right? And then the third business that I started, funny enough, was a PR service business. And I started with a friend of mine who had no knowledge of PR. But then that business failed, and purely because we were pulling it in two different directions, right? And with every business that had failure to launch, I would always take stock of why, what happened. And I realized that I'm the common denominator here. Number two, there's a way in which I want to work, and which is different from how other people work. And as much as you and I could be friends, but we will not have the same drive and the same passion towards what we want to do. So sometimes that compromises where the business should go. I then decided, because I've tried partnerships with other people, that didn't work. Maybe let me try going solo and let's see how solo goes. And in 2016, I went solo, and I've never looked back.
But now tell me this, right? Now, your dad sort of shuts it down. What is this entrepreneurial thing?
Yeah.
So the thing about it is, a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves in that situation, right? Where, I guess maybe and I think sometimes our parents don't mean bad. It's just they're not educated. I don't want to use the word educated, right? But they might not have been exposed to entrepreneurship at that time.
Yeah.
So you not getting that sort of support from your parents sometimes is very crushing. I mean, how did you work around the support, and did they come around?
Look, I think, Bulelani, to your point, so parents shut the idea down, not because they didn't believe in it, but because they did not know anybody who has done what I wanted to do. So there was no point of reference, right? So they knew of a guy that owned a spaza shop, or a supermarket, or a butcher, or who owned 4 taxis, or who did whatever. But they had not imagined anybody in this family wanting to do something that unconventional, because we've been raised to believe that you are born, you go to creche or preschool, you go to primary school, you go to high school, you then go to varsity, you graduate, and then you come back and you find a job. That's how our parents were raised, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then, because there's this system and this structure that's been put in place, according to them, that is the rule book that all of us must follow, right? And so they did not see any of that thing, becoming a reality. And that's why I then decided, you know what, maybe it's time to conform and fit in this box that my parents had set aside for me. And I followed that thing up until a point where I realized that I cannot function within this box anymore. I needed, a breakaway. And unfortunately, my parents, are not here today, to see what I've been able to do. But I think, even the people that were sitting in the room when my dad crashed the idea are now alive. And surprisingly, one of them said to me, I wish I'd believed you back then. I wish I had, fought your father, in him allowing you to do what you wanted to do. Because in hindsight, when I look at where you are today versus where you wanted to be a few years ago, this is not an accident.
Sure. No, man, that's give me a round of applause there, because it's not, right?
Yeah.
It's you sort of you follow the process, and I think there's a formula behind the madness. But now tell me this: so first business, second business, third business, and I guess a multiplicity of other things that you potentially might have failed in.
Yeah.
How then do you cushion failure, right? How do you then deal around failure? Because, one of the things that I've realized is that being an entrepreneur for over 16 years myself, rejection, I think the mindset towards how you deal with it is what sort of fortifies you, but the feeling and the sort of bitter taste of it consistently feels the same. How do you sort of wrap your head around these failures?
Look, Bulelani, to be very frank with you, I don't think one can get over rejection, right? So I don't think you are then able to say, no, it's fine. I was expecting that. Let me move on. But then you need to get to a point where you realize that you'll need to get a few no's before you get one yes, right? So you then need to get to a point where you then start understanding that not every door will open for you, and sometimes a no doesn't necessarily. Sometimes a no is not a bad thing. Sometimes a no affords you a chance to go back and review why the no was done. For me, failure has never been an option, right? So I had never been in a space where I wanted to fail, or where failing was an option that I had at my disposal. So for me, success has always been a thing that I wanted to do. For me, success has always been, a thing that was, prescribed in the book. So, and I've learned to live. I've learned to live with that. I've learned to, to work around, the fact that in my planning, there's always room for. If there's a no, then what do we do, right? So because sometimes we go out and we put all our eggs in one basket and hope that all the eggs are gonna hatch, right? And not allow ourselves, the room to say, but one egg might break and not necessarily hatch, right? Or one egg might come off rotten, or one egg might not even hatch. One egg might. A lot of things could happen to this big basket of eggs that you have at your disposal.
Yeah.
But it's about how then do you ensure that you get to a point where you allow yourself the opportunity to say, I'll take one egg hatching over the other 100. Right, and I'll take this small win because big things have got small beginnings, right? So people always want to, start big, and without understanding that you need to prepare yourself, adequately to make sure that by the time bigger things come your way, you are prepared for those things.
But now, Nnusi, and I know you wanted to say something, but there's something that you're sparking, and I think, guys, have you ever had your idea stolen, or presented your idea and have had it stolen? Because, and I asked this and I didn't even know that, right? But I asked this for the sort of purpose of these amazing young or small businesses, young or mature or old or whatsoever, who are constantly going out pitching the idea. Because I had a conversation with a lady I know quite recently, and she told me that, one of the broadcasters took the idea exactly as it is.
Yeah.
So what happened? How did you deal with that?
I mean, I've had a situation where, I came and I said, Bulelani, I've got this big idea that I want to do. And then Bulelani said, okay, I hear you. Let's have a chat about it. And we have a chat about it, and then I'll come back to you. And then a few weeks later, you see your idea, either copied word for word, or just, a bigger chunk of it, being used somewhere else. And how then do you deal with it? I mean, for me, it's been a case of. And it's always the big guys that come and steal small guys' ideas, right?
Yeah.
And then you start thinking about, but do I even have the financial muscle to go fight them in court, right? Do I even have the energy to go fight them in court, to go fight them in any way? And I remember what had happened with me was that I had an idea of I think we wanted to do a TV show, centered around. How then do we document the life of sports people, because there's a lot of people that we don't get to know about, especially as black people. We don't document our history. We don't archive stuff, and then the older we get, the more the story changes along the way. Eventually the story fades out completely, and then a few months later I see a promo on TV. I'm like, but we had this conversation. This looks very familiar to me, right? And it was a painful thing to do. And coincidentally, then I heard the late Bob Mabena speaking on an interview the other day, and he then says to me, and he was speaking not to me personally, but I think on the interview, then he then says, "There's nothing that you can do today that hasn't been done, right? So there's no new idea that exists right now. Everything that you see has been done before, but it's about how then do you present it to the next person, that makes it almost new, almost unique, right?" And then I then said to myself, maybe that's what happened. This is me consoling myself. Maybe that's what happened. But that did not change the fact that I was disappointed at the fact that the same people that I spoke to, what are the odds? What are the chances of me speaking to you about an idea, and then tomorrow you are the executive producer of the same idea that I pitched to you?
Yeah, because ordinarily I would need to disclose.
Yeah. Right?
So if you going into something that is similar, you'd need to disclose. But now, because you're doing big work,
yeah,
and you even pitching for bigger work and engaging with larger organizations. What is your sort of theory around protecting your ideas? Because I'll tell you why. I've got a friend of mine from an organization called the Geek Culture, and what he says is, it doesn't necessarily believe in NDAs.
Yeah.
Because it feels like if someone is going to take your idea, they're going to take your idea.
Either way, yeah.
Right. But I think just from a basic level, right? I think just from basic things that one can do to sort of, present, but don't give your whole entire spiel away.
Yeah, look, I think just show me panties, don't show me the whole bum, right? So for me, that's what I do. I just, I give you an idea of exactly what it is that I want to do, and very, 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 very thin, and it's not even detailed, so that I am then able to say. So all I'm doing is just saying to you, let me just tease you. So this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it, right? And this is what you can expect to get out of this thing, and then leave it at that. So if you want us to continue this conversation further, then it means we need to have contracts in place, and either need to be employed or either need to be contracted to deliver on this thing, and then I then bring the how mechanics into all of these things. So I'll give you the what I want to do, and I'll leave the how and the what. So the how and the why are behind.
But now just tell me, so here you are, corporate. How was your sort of corporate transition and in running your own business at the same time? Because I see you as this corporate man, this entrepreneur, and this community leader.
Yeah. Look, I think, the trick for me had always been about balancing the two, because the biggest mistake that we have made, and myself included, is that leaving corporate and starting a business, because you're under this illusion or your delusion to believe that you will quit your job today and then tomorrow you are fully functional and fully fledged and you've got clients. This is purely because you had security salary for the longest of time. So it was easy for you to think all things are possible, because I've made that mistake before. I've left literally a good paying job to go starting a clean service business. And when that business failed, I had no fallback plan, right? So then my next fallback plan was, let's go back to corporate. So like as I spoke in the beginning about how with every failed business, I always take lessons out of it, and I always introspect. I then realized that I need to balance it out. So have a 9 to 5 at the same time, start building this machine that you want to do, because what your day job, what you do in corporate does for you is that it helps you fund this dream that you have. Right, so because money is an enabler, whether we like it or not. Money enables us to do stuff, right? So your day-to-day job, your 9 to 5, as you call it, will then somehow start funding this dream that you have. Will then start funding this ambition that you have. Will then start funding this vision that you have, and then up until such a point that you are very confident and very sure that this thing is alive and this thing is fully functional. only then can you take it. Can you take the jump and take the plunge and say, you know what, it's been great. I'm leaving corporate and I'm going to start my own. Or I'm going to focus on my business full time. But also, never neglect your 9 to 5 whilst you started, because you can't then now start neglecting what pays your salary and what keeps the lights on in pursuit of a dream. So if the decision is to do both of them, you need to give them the adequate respect that they deserve. It's not an easy thing to do, but it requires discipline, right? You need to be disciplined enough in knowing that I have a responsibility here. I've got a contract here that I need to fulfill. At the same time, I'm using whatever resources I have here, and resources by I mean money, to be able to fund this dream that I have and make sure that this dream starts to move. The money that you have will then allow you to oil this machine so that eventually the machine functions like a well-oiled machine. And then by the time you decide to leave and focus on this thing full time, at least you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from somewhere. So it was a balancing act. And then I remember, my business is now 6 years old. And I remember on my third year, I had made a decision that I'm going to work 8 hours for my employer, come home, rest for 2 hours and put another 8 hours in my business. And I kept the discipline for a full year. By the time I left corporate to go start my own business, to focus on my business full time, there was a system in place. So I did not feel like I'm starting from scratch. I just literally switched off here, switched on there, and committed the 16 hours that I was committing in my day, in any case, now to one business. And let us not fool ourselves. It was not an easy transition, right? Because then you are living a paying job. You're living a salary. You're living security to go pursue this dream. That in your head, you are hoping that it succeeds. In your head, you know that it's going to succeed. But it's a question of when are we going to start reaping the rewards? And what people don't understand, or what people think, is that when you work for yourself, you've got time. You've got absolutely no time, because you are now the person who decides how much money comes in. So if you don't put in the work, there's no money coming in. If you're putting 1% every single day, don't expect to get 100% at the end of the day, because you cannot cheat the system. You just cannot cheat the system. For me, I remember my last day in corporate was the 22nd of September 2017. That was the last time I 22nd September 2018 was the last time I woke up and announced I'm going to a job. Needless to say that I started making a bit of money into the business in March 2019.
Sure. Is there a formula for you in terms of how you do this? Do you believe that there's even something that to even balance them equally is even possible, or how do you navigate?
To be honest with you, I don't think work-life balance exists. That's just me, right? And I could be very wrong, and I'm happy to be very wrong. For me, it's a thing of, what do I need to sacrifice now that will allow me to live the way I want to live? So either you become the sacrifice, or you then sacrifice the things that you sacrifice so that you are then able to live as you should be. So for me, I've realized that there's no work-life balance. So it's about knowing your limits. So I work 16 hours a day, and the other remaining 8 hours of the day, I need to find sleep there and do other things, right? So it's about understanding when do you take a break, when do you stop, and how then do you balance life, and how then do you get your social life intact? How then do you make sure that you go to the gym, you go see friends, you go see family? So it's about all of those things, and also knowing when to listen to yourself. So there's a point where my body says to me, if you don't stop now, I'm gonna crash on you. Then I know that, okay, then I need to stop, because if my body crashes, then I would have lost out, because then it means I'll need to be in a hospital somewhere for whatever number of days, and I can't afford to be in a hospital. I can't afford to be sick, because if that happens, then it affects the bread and butter that we're trying to build. So I think for me, it's about pushing yourself as much as you can, but knowing your limits and knowing exactly when to stop, and knowing exactly when is the right time for you to put your handbrake on and say, you know what, this is it. I'll take whatever time I need to take, and I'll come back to this thing.
Now, to nitpick on what you mentioned, right, the 2 years, right? Yeah. So 2017, you only started turning a profit in 2019. What was that like? Where you growing this business? I guess this is then the point where you always, I think as an entrepreneur, always hear that resounding voice, delay the gratification. Yeah. How was the process like, and what were some of your, did you have dark days, and what did those days look like?
Well, I think I had more darker days than brighter days, right? Because as much as I had because there was a plan for me. So for me, I knew that I needed to leave corporate by the end of 2018. That had always been my target. So I had to start building, reserves to ensure that by the time I leave corporate, that there's enough money for me to live. But what is enough money? So you can never really quantify enough time or enough money for me to live. So I had saved up enough money to help me get by, and so I left corporate in September, and then there was a day when I couldn't afford to pay my ISP, 199 rand. There was a day when I could not pay that. There was a day when I could not afford to make a phone call, because there was no money coming in. And I remember January was so Feb of 2019, things were very bad. So just to take you a few months back, so then I had to go see a lady in Bulelani for a pitch. I'd been pursuing this lady for the longest of time, looking for business from her, and I just couldn't get her. And then eventually she then says to me, "I'm available to meet you, but I'm in Bulelani." Right? So we can meet. And she tells me today, we can meet tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in my office. I'll give you the address. In my pocket, I had 350 rands in my pocket. That was the last money that I had, 350 rands. Right? So I need to think, do I then take a taxi to Bulelani? Or do I take this 350, put it in the car, and then drive to Bulelani? And I'll see when I get to Bulelani what happens. Right? So driving to Bulelani was the easiest thing for me to do. Right? So I knew with 350 rand, I could get over half a tank of petrol. I can get to Bulelani and back with that petrol. Right? So I drove 3 hours for a 32-minute meeting. 3 hours to Bulelani, stayed with this lady for 32 minutes, drove back. When I parked the car inside the garage, the light was on, which meant I had 40 Ks before my car literally switched off. I've got no money, zero money, right? And I believed that this would be done, and I believe that I'll need to sow a seed, and I needed to make a few sacrifices, until I got to a point where I needed to get to. It was frustrating, Bulelani. I mean, there were days when I would cry myself to sleep and ask myself, what the hell did you just do? Why don't you just go back? I mean, why? I mean, it's an easier thing to do. You can always go back and into corporate and start doing this thing. But for me, the why was much more important. For me, the why I'm doing this was the thing that kept me going. For me, it was about understanding that if I don't make these sacrifices today, if I don't pursue this dream, I will always live a life of regret and wonder every single day, what would have happened had I stuck it out just a little bit longer? And listen, it was tough. I could not pay Motlakase electricity for 400 bucks. So where I had to negotiate and say to the service provider, listen, can I please have an extension? Can I pay you next month? And make sure that I hustle, 2 months worth of electricity for so the next month that I pay them, and then they don't disconnect me, and then negotiate another month, So when all of that happened, and I then realized that the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward, right? And also I started understanding that if you really, really want to live the life that you're predestined for, one, you must take the jump, right? And the jump is not an easy jump, because when you jump, a lot of things can happen. So either the parachute will not come out on time. If it does come out on time, you might catch yourself against a tree, catch yourself against a rock.
Yeah.
The landing is not a smooth landing. When you land, you'll probably fall on your feet, right? So for me, it was about understanding that thing from that level, to say, I just took the jump here. I literally jumped off a cliff with a parachute on, and I'm hoping for the best. Today, I look back and I say to people, you look at me today and you think I woke up one day and I was here. You don't understand that there was a journey that I needed to go through. You don't understand that there were things that I needed to do and sacrifices that I needed to make that allowed me to get to this point. And even when I'm at this point, I'm still not comfortable enough to say, no, it's okay. And I was having a chat with a friend of mine yesterday, and I said to her, you'd be surprised at how much money I pay myself from my own business, right? Because then you go and get a 5 million rand contract, as an example, and you think you're a millionaire. No, you're not a millionaire. That's not your money. That's the business money, right? I then said to this lady, I pay myself enough money to pay for my bond, to pay for my car, keep the lights on, and give me petrol and money for the month. That's all that I'm paying myself. So you figure out how much that money is that I earn on a monthly basis.
Yeah, but now you and you know what I'm loving about this conversation is that you're touching on so many real entrepreneurial nuggets that I feel whether the entrepreneurs that are listening or watching this or the individuals watching this know or they don't know, they will now know from today. Because that's one of the biggest challenges that you find, right? This entrepreneur sees 500 Rand or 2 million in the business bank account, and then you take that, you go, you buy airtime, you take that, you go. How important was defining this line and this discipline in the recapitalization and the growth of your business?
I've made a few mistakes before, and mistakes of looking at the business account as my personal account, and I remember there was a time when I lived off my business account, so I would go and pay DSTV with my business account. I'd go have lunch with my business account. I'd go buy stuff from the shops with the business account, and then there was a year when I needed to do the books and so the lady was assisting me with my accounts. Says, what is this? Why are we spending 400 Rand for DSTV? Why is there 39 Rand at Caltex garage? Why this thing? And she says to me, this is not your money. This is not your money. You are not the business. You work for the business. So then you need to, start understanding the fact that you are stealing. She says to me, what you've done is stealing. You've stolen the money that did not belong to you. You've used the money that didn't belong to you. It is stealing. Who gave you permission to do that, right? So ever since then, I've learned that I need to draw salary from the business. So I need to look at myself as an employee of my own business, and that has been the thing for me. So whatever money I make, and I had to have a board meeting with myself and decide how much money are we paying this person who's our employee. And for me it was about, because then we are trying to build here. We're trying to build a legacy. We're trying to create something here. So I can't live lavish lifestyle out of the business account. So I need to make sure that I've got enough money, to keep me afloat. I've got enough money to keep the lights on. So as long as I've got roof over my head, and I know that my car is paid and my house is paid, and I've got food in the house, I've got internet, and I've got cell phone, and I've got petrol in the car, then that for me is enough. I don't need to be living, like I'm a multimillionaire, because I'm not. And I'm trying to get to a point where I become exactly that. But even then, when that happens, I think I'd still draw salary from the business like any other person, and not live off the business account like I'm a rock star. And also I think the other thing that I really need to touch on, which something that I see on a daily basis happening amongst our people, is the fact that so we need to understand and ask ourselves the question, why are we in business? So why are you in business? So are you there because you are trying to impress the streets? Are you there because there's a need that you're trying to address? Are you there because the business needs to fund your lifestyle? So for me, it's about understanding exactly that. And the answer, I ask myself the same question. And for me, I've got a two-pronged response. Right? So the first part of my answer is the fact that there is a need, or there's an unemployment problem in this country. We've got over 36% of our people that are unemployed. Over 60% of those people being young people, who are unemployed. So you go do the maths. So meaning 6 out of 10 people that are probably unemployed. Of those 6 people that are unemployed, 5 of them have given up and looking for a job. So we've got a problem of unemployment in this country. So I went into business because I wanted to provide an opportunity or create an environment where I'm able to employ one person at least. That's the first thing, right? The second thing is that there is a need for what I do. So somebody needs my services. So if I can provide a solution for them, why not? And that is very evident in the name of my business. So my business is called Kgotla PR and Communications. So Kgotla is a derivative of a word, Kgotla. So back in the days, and this only came to me very late in life, and very late being about 2 years ago. That so we've got a family house called Botswana. So we live in a village called Ramotswa. In that village, there's the Kgotla. So there's places where people come and say, Bulelani ate my chicken yesterday. I saw Bulelani carry my dog, wada, right? So the people go to Kgotla because they are looking for solutions. So they sit there, and then you must come and say, I'm the complainant and he's the plaintiff, and this is our situation. And the people that are standing here with their grievances and issues are hoping to get solutions and answers from the council that's sitting there. So my business is called Kgotla because I see myself as somebody who is there to provide solutions to many problems that exist in the world. So as a client, you've got a problem, you come here because you are hoping and expecting to get a solution from us. So that's how I have positioned my business. And then later on, as I was going through my late mother's stuff, I then realized that my mother's name was Kgotla. Because she was born in a place, she was born Kgotla, so Kgotla, right? So and you know, sometimes you just do things, you know, without knowing. But the older you get, the more that there's actually a real reason why all of these things are happening. And for me, there was exactly that. So the question about why are we in business is a very important question to answer. Because then there lies the reasons why you are there.
Yeah.
And there lies what triggers you and what informs your decision-making process going forward. So I'm not here for myself, but I'm here to make sure that, you know, we address a bigger problem that we have in this country of unemployment. And not only do we do that, but we ensure that we then deliver great work. We then deliver work that will then be able to grow itself and grow the business and ultimately employ more people. And then, I mean, all of us are in business to make money. But for me, money becomes secondary to addressing these big problems that we have. So, I mean, I lost my parents 2003. So both my parents passed away the same year, but 8 months apart. So my mom passed away on the 25th of February, and the challenges of coming from such a household are not easy, you know, because you could easily decide to, you know, take a detour and become a criminal because society has failed you, because life has just given you a raw deal, you know, and you've been dealt the wrong card. What do I know about being a parent at the age of 17? What do I know about a parent being at the age of 18? So we raised ourselves, needless to say that none of us are in prison. All of us are still alive, and all of us are doing amazing things within our respective fields and whatever. So for me, and I remember when I did my last university, I went to a children's home by chance. Somebody had said to me, "No, we're going, come with us." And as I was sitting there, I think in that moment, my purpose was born, and I think not even born, but I then got to understand why I'm here, you know, and that for me was, I then realized that because somebody had paid it forward for me, because somebody had done something for me, it was important for me to also pay it forward and hold the door open for the next person. So and then I then made a decision at the time, you know, to say, you know, for as long as I'm above ground, I'll need to make sure that I paid for it, and I need to make sure that I do it for somebody else, because there are people that gave into my life, and by giving I don't only mean chelete. So people gave into my life in many ways. So there was a guy who felt it was important for them to have pep talks with me about stuff in general. You know, there was a person who saw it befitting for them to invest a lot of time in grooming me to be the man that I am today. There was a person who really felt that, you know, as much as my parents were gone, I would not feel like an orphan. There was a person who felt like, you know, I should not go to school on an empty stomach, or I should not go to school with worn out shoes, or I should not go to school with no shoes at all. You know, and for me, it was a collective of things that people had done for me that allowed me to become the man that I am today, and because for me there was no expectations of them, so none of them said to me, because I've done this thing for you, I want you to do it back as well. But it was about, I then got to understand, and I got to know and experience what their assistance did for me. And it was out of that thing I said to myself, it's very important then, because I've seen the effects of what people giving into my life has done for me, it's important that I do exactly the same thing for the next person. So I then decided that, you know, for as long as I'm above ground, I then need to make sure that I help the next person. And who can I relate to the best? It's the person who has been through what I've been through. So I'm speaking from a place of reference. So I'm not talking to you about something that I heard somebody speaking about. I know how it feels like to go to bed hungry. I know how it feels like to wake up in the house and there are no parents. I know how it feels like to go to school with worn out shoes. I know how it feels like to go to school with hand-me-down outfits. So because of that, I then decided I don't want any other child going through what I had gone through. And what do I do in return? I give back into their lives, and I make sure that I paid forward for them, and I hold it open for them. Whether they come back and do the same thing for the next person is entirely up to them. Whether they do what I did for them is entirely up to them. But for me, it was about, I'm going to give into one person's life, and this one person, I'm hoping that they come back and they do it for the next person. I don't know. I want nothing in return. Don't get me. I want for me, there's an expectation. We've adopted 13 child-headed households. We've assisted 96 children who said we needed this and that. We've been able to go and raise money and build labs for schools. We've been able to go around and help and raise money to ensure that kids don't go to bed hungry. We've gone out of our way to make sure that we do the things that we can do, and purely because we understand that none of us are self-made. So we are here to be of service to other people. So the monies that we have are not for us. The talents that we have are not here. They are here. That we've been entrusted with these things, and what we do with those things is very important, because at the end of the day, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I was given one talent. What did I do with that talent?
Sure. So, wow, this guy. So before we wrap up, and I give him the opportunity to just close off, and I guess I'm talking to the guys on YouTube and the guys listening to this podcast, right? The details are on the blurb. If you're watching this, they're on the bottom of the screen to follow this gentleman, but also ask as many questions as you possibly can, right? Just looking at how he's navigated his entrepreneurial journey. So add your own, I think over and above that, add your own commentaries, right? Share your comments and your reviews in terms of this podcast and tell us what you think, right? But Nnusi, man, in wrapping it up, just what advice would you give to this young entrepreneur listening to this podcast or listening to you today?
Sure. I'm not sure I'm the right person to be teaching out advice, but let's give it a bash. So for me, it's about understanding your why, right? So there's what I call the circle of life, and the circle of life is it's got 3 layers to it. So it's got your why, it's got your how, and then it's got your what, right? And people don't care about what you do. They quite frankly don't care about what you do, because what you do is a byproduct of many things. People don't care about how you do things. What people care about is the why you're doing the things that you're doing, because your why is where you derive your value. So your why is the thing that keeps you awake at night. Your why is that thing, that makes you very restless, because without you understanding, or without you unpacking the why, then you are unable to do the things that you're supposed to be doing. So for me, it's about the first things about understanding the why you're doing the things that you want to do, or understanding the why you want to do the things that you want to do. The second thing is follow your dreams and follow your heart. So the question that had always been, but then what is my reason, or what is my talent? And I always say to people, especially when I speak in schools about when I speak to young people in schools, I say to them, it's very important that you understand exactly what your talent is. Yeah. And the mistake that we make is that we think, because you and I are friends, we've got the same talent. And we only, confine talent to singing and running and drawing and all of those things. But your gift and your talent is that thing that you do the utmost best with least amount of effort. That for me has always been a thing. And I've been privileged enough or blessed enough to understand my purpose in life at a very early age. So my business is a primarily a sports PR business, and for 2 reasons. I'm not talented in sport in any way, right? So, but I'm a great storyteller. So that is my gift, and I've been able to take my gift and marry it with the things that I'm passionate about. So the confusion, people always confuse passion with the talent. So for me, it was about understanding exactly what my gift was, and my gift is I'm a storyteller. So there's no way a person can ask me a question and I don't paint a picture for them in words. So I understood exactly what my gift was, and the gift was storytelling. And what else? What are some of the things that I was passionate about as a lighty? And then sport was one of the things that I was passionate about. So it was easy for me to marry my passion and my gift. So it's about understanding and finding out exactly what is your talent. What is that thing that you are good at? What is the thing that you can do to your best with the utmost least of effort, and then try to figure out how then do I monetize this? How then do I ensure that I commercialize this thing that I have, and never be afraid to make mistakes. Never be afraid to learn. You must always accept criticism as exactly that. It is there to build you up, right? And the one thing that I've learned to do, as I get older, was the fact that I've stopped, having a contingency plan for when things fail. So I don't have a fallback plan, But instead, I always try to think about what are the things that I can do that will help me to fall forward. So as the business grows, what are some of the things that I can start doing so that should this one fail, then I know that there's something that I can always look forward to, but not have a fallback plan, because then that means in your head, you know that you're going to fail. So because you are failing, you want to call it quits and then go back. So we can't be going back. So we need learn to fail forward, learn to plan to fall forward. So and that's the thing that I'm trying to do every single day. It's a learning experience where I do things and I'm like, so in my doing of this thing, what else can I do that will help me fall forward?
That's
Should
powerful.
things fail where I am, what's my fall forward plan?
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Mr. Gazi. Wow. But thank you so much for making time. Thank you for coming here. A ball of wisdom, and we really appreciate it. So join us next week for another podcast, and don't forget to leave your comments, subscribe and follow. Thank you. That's it for today. If you like that podcast, show us some love and share it with your network. Once again, follow us on all of our social media platforms, #JoinUsForTea, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Shout out to Joe Public for making this possible. Remember, Sisonke Rikaufela and Foster Njengomzegezege.